Welcome back to the Disrupt Education Podcast. I'm Peter Hostrasser. I'm here with Allie Privet. I have my pen in my hand. That's why I'm looking down, Allie, because I'm always taking notes. But before we get to our awesome guest today, how's it going with you? We're transitioning at the time of this taping, although it'll be pretty deep into the fall. What's skydiving like in the fall?
Skydiving in the fall is totally weather dependent. And I feel like it's so interesting. You think you understand weather like before you get into a sport that's like really weather dependent. And then you like really get to know the weather and you start looking at like the temperature at every 1,000 feet and the winds. And you're looking at like satellite images of cloud systems moving through and long range forecast, short range forecast. November, when this episode will be coming out, is one of the most cloudy months of the year in the Midwest, which I did not ever pay attention to until I was a skydiver because clouds really do matter. In skydiving, you can't jump through clouds. It's a break of the FAA. So in the United States. In
Yeah.
other countries, you can jump through clouds, but not in the United States. So it's like, right, you learn all these different things about weather that you would never think about unless you're like wanting to utilize the weather to skydive.
Ah, so that kind of goes right into our guests. We're talking about experiencing. So if you want to be a meteorologist, you might as well become a skydiver, right? You gotta experience the weather by being in it up
Right.
there, right? Something like that. I feel like now I'm like totally disrupting education because there are two original science teachers around me. With Allie, obviously, was a science teacher, and we have Dan Gonzalez with us, who, Dan, you started as a high school physics teacher. Is that correct?
I did. This is many years ago, but yeah,
Oh
that
man.
was
So we
yeah.
have Dan Gonzalez with us. I'm going to give a brief intro. So basically the co-founder and CEO of District C, which is we're going to take a deep dive into it. But yeah, let's go all the way back into, first off, kind of maybe a little bit more about who you are, but then let's go back into your learning journey until where you are now. So yeah, who is Dan Gonzalez to everybody out there who needs to know?
Oh, I'm a middle-aged guy, just trying to get by.
I
So
hear
happy to
that.
be here. First of all, thank you both for having me. Thanks for the work that you do. It's really important, and I'm grateful to have a chance to be speaking with you.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I
education.
started.
How'd you get into there, man?
Yeah, so I started as a high school physics teacher and then did a bunch of private tutoring over a number of years while I was trying to make a career in music. I wasn't that good at music, so that wasn't working out. So I ended up doing more and more tutoring to pay the bills, and ultimately ended up working for a for-profit education company based in New York
Hmm.
that had a really interesting philosophy about how to run a great business and build a great team and deliver an exceptional education product. And learned a lot from the founder and the leadership there, and ultimately had a chance to run that company. And then worked for Kaplan for a number of years
Hmm.
through that. And then about 8 years ago, my wife and I decided to leave our jobs and start District C. And we had this strong belief that there aren't enough opportunities for students, particularly in high school, to experience the kinds of things that they need to experience to get ready for modern work. And I know, Peter, in one of your recent blogs, you said experience is the best teacher. I could not agree more. And so District C is kind of founded on that belief. And that's how we got started about 8 years ago. And now we're 8 years into it and we're still going, which is fun and exciting, sometimes anxiety inducing, but mostly fun and exciting.
We're 8 years into the podcast, Allie. We're
Wow.
Wow,
lined up. This is getting strange.
that's awesome. So, okay, right, you have a pretty traditional path of work in my mind until you're like, let's just leave our jobs and start a company to provide, like District C to the world, right? Like, why? I mean, like really, just, I mean, yes, you had that strong belief with your wife, but like, where did you find your purpose by doing that? Like, I mean, I think we're starting off there because it's just like, I feel like everyone listening is going to be like, okay, Dan, yep, okay, teacher, you did some tutoring, worked for profit, worked for Kaplan, and wait, what? Started his own company. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I think there are two things. One is we felt like there was a clear problem to solve, and I think that's a good starting place for, starting any business. If you have a clear problem to solve, that gives you something to start with. And the problem we were both seeing in our professional workplaces, which is that the people that were the best to work with, the most fun to work with, the most productive, the most innovative, were the people that knew how to work with others, knew how to leverage the diverse perspectives of others, knew how to work on a team to do really hard stuff, solve important challenges, solve novel problems, make new innovations. And it occurred to us that those people that were most successful in our places of work maybe kind of beat the odds, because our school system, our traditional education system, does not prepare you to be great at those things. It prepares you to be an individual achiever. And by that, I mean stepping through and achieving at the game of school. So here are the things you need to comply with. Achieve those things and we will give you your diploma, right? And that is it's just contrary to what we ask people to do in the professional world, which is work with all these people who think differently from you. There's no clear process. There's no clear answer. Here's the big thing we're trying to get done. Here's the big problem we're trying to solve. Go do it. And so school does not necessarily, or has not historically prepared people for the realities of modern work. And that's only increasing in this age of artificial intelligence, robotics, automation. The things that computers, robots, and AIs are good at, those things are taking away the tasks and elements of jobs that humans used to do, right? And that's leaving for humans kind of one core thing, which is you got to be good at working together to solve problems. Otherwise, your job is going to be taken by all of this technology. So that was really the kind of the first motivation, was there was a clear problem to solve. The second thing, the second thing was we were both just really interested in starting something and building an organization and trying to think about what does it take to build a really strong culture where people show up every day united around a common purpose and really excited to work together to do something really hard, which is build a new product, launch it, get market adoption, and ultimately scale. And so that challenge of organizational creation and development and growth was really interesting to me as well. So we did it for those two reasons.
So, and thank you for sharing that. I love that challenge and that piece. And like, there's a problem here, and instead of just complaining about it, let's try to fix something that's really meaningful to us. Here's what I like, right? Now I'm kind of going into your website here. Dan studied engineering at Dartmouth College before going into this. Like, your path is exactly kind of, they're like, wait, why is this guy not doing engineering? Well, you are engineering a company, but yeah, tell us, like, in your own path, was there challenges that you saw? Like, because that's a pretty solid academic background you have there.
I can tell you exactly why I'm not doing engineering, and it's related to this whole conversation. So this will come full circle. When I was young, I thought I wanted to be an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said to my parents, I said, I think I should probably get an internship in engineering. And I didn't even know what that meant, like engineering. Like, you can study it, you can study science, but really don't know what it is. So my dad happened to know someone who invested in an engineering firm. And so my dad called this guy, friend of ours. He said, sure, I'll get that internship for you. So a week later, I had the internship. Didn't have to interview, didn't really have to submit a resume. At least I can't remember submitting a resume. And so I got this internship, and I showed up, and no one was really expecting me. No one really knew what to do with me. So I kind of met with I got there and I met with kind of the manager. He had stacks of these documents on his desk. He looked really busy and frazzled. He didn't really know how to kind of deal with me or handle me. I didn't really know what to ask of him. And so I ended up just like doing menial tasks for the entire summer. And I thought that's what a job in engineering would be. And so I decided I didn't like that. And I think that the lesson here is, number one, internship experiences, work-based learning experiences, any meaningful work-based learning experiences, typically students who have social capital and family networks disproportionately get these experiences, right? The vast majority of students are not able to rely on their father to make one phone call to get this kind of experience. So there's an equity issue. Number two, too many internship experiences, work-based learning experiences lack the kind of rigor or opportunity for development that we really need our students to have. There aren't predefined frameworks for learning. There aren't managers who know how to mentor and support students. And so the internship experience, not all of them, there are many good ones, but I would guess the majority of them are not great experiences for students. And so there's an opportunity here, number one, to make work-based learning more equitable and accessible for more students, and to make it, number two, more rigorous and meaningful when it comes to the development of the kinds of skills students need to succeed in modern work. And so that's what happened. That's why I didn't end up going into engineering. And that experience, that personal experience, informs in part the kind of product and program that we built at District C.
Yeah.
So talk us through a little bit more, like, how does District C partner with schools? Like, what does it look like, today? It's probably evolved since 8 years ago, so I'm a school district, I'm an educator. I really want to do more work-based learning and meaningful internships. And I'm looking at District C, like, how does that work? And how is it different? Being on the Disrupt Education podcast, we see the work as disruptive and your approach disruptive, but, other people may not fully understand how District C works and how it like really pushes the envelope forward for students.
Yeah, so our flagship program is called Teamship. And you can think of Teamship as a reimagined internship experience where teams of students solve real problems for real businesses in the community. The most important element, at least this is what we think, the most important element of the Teamship experience is the coaching. And what we like to say, and this is learned through trial and error. The easy part is putting students in teams and asking them to solve a problem. The hard part is coaching them to get better at that work. And so when we founded District C, for the first year, we watched student teams trying to solve really hard problems, real problems for businesses. And the experience for them was great. They appreciated the opportunity, but we didn't see a ton of growth and the core skills and mindsets that they needed to do that work well. And so we started to think a lot about, what does the coaching look like? What are the kinds of coaching moves that like move the needle? What are you looking for? What are you observing for when you're watching a student team of 4 students doing this kind of work? What are the kinds of things that you say? How much time do you spend listening to a team of students before you move to another team? How long are your coaching moves? How much talking should I be doing versus how much work they should be doing amongst themselves? And so through all of this work and trial and error, we developed what we call the District C coaching philosophy, which is essentially the approach for facilitating the teamship experience. And so our engagement with schools and school districts is we partner with them. They have the intent of adopting teamship into their day-to-day academic programming. And the way that we support them is we train a bunch of their teachers and we certify a bunch of their teachers in our coaching philosophy. And then we support those teachers in adopting teamship right into their classes. And this is where the equity piece comes in. If you're a student in that school and you're at school during the day, you should have access to that program. Regardless of the responsibilities you have after school, your family connections, et cetera, we're going to bring the experience to you during the school day. So the teacher is trained and certified. We've supported them in adopting the program in their day-to-day classes. And then we provide all of the business partner support. And you all know this as teachers. This is a really hard part of the job. If you're expected to go out and engage businesses in the community,
Yeah.
and like, I got 6 preps or 5 preps or whatever it is, and I've got this department meeting I need to go to and all the emails I need to answer and my parent meetings. I can't possibly be out in the community recruiting businesses. This is something we learned early on. So this is a part of the service. We recruit the businesses, we screen them, we onboard them, we scope the teamship problem with them, we schedule their meetings with the students, and we ultimately manage the entire business experience so that the teacher that we have trained can do what they do best, which is coach the students. So what we're trying to do is get it, embed it into the school system, into the school day, so that students have access, and we're trying to make it as easy as possible for teachers to do this work. So we're supporting them through training and certification, and we're supporting them through providing all the business partner support.
I can tell you, Allie, you know, like I'm an internship coordinator, and they have given us the time to do similar stuff, but we're more on the internship kind of things. We call it team-based challenges. I love this. Let me ask you this: what grade levels are you mainly working on, and where would you like to see it kind of grow around that type or that age of learner?
Yeah, the primary kind of the wheelhouse is 9th through 12th grade. We've worked as young as 7th grade and as old as higher ed.
Yeah.
And actually part of the coach training involves the teachers going through a teamship experience themselves. So it's a learn by doing process. So technically we're doing teamship with career education professionals as well.
Yeah.
But 9 through 12, I would say the majority of students are in that age range.
So you're probably seeing a lot of these things where people have the profile of a graduate or portrait of a graduate that are now coming out, right? There's always been the SAT, ACT, and then the GPAs and stuff. And then we're finally figuring out, wait a minute, these skills were very important. These experiences are very important. What have you seen around that, and how are you connecting? Like, because how does I should just say, is there a great story that you have of a school that, or even like a class that you have gone through over the past 8 years and you've seen this happen and you're like, wow, I can only imagine, like, in a core class, a mathematics class or wherever, like you can put all this stuff. As a science teacher, you know this. But yeah, tell us, like, is there a good like story that you have around, hey man, this was something that was just kind of like the checkbox, and this is right now one of the best things we had going?
Yeah, so we have a school partner that we've partnered with. We're probably into our 7th year at this point. They have adopted a year-long teamship course. It's an honors elective, and so students elect into this course. All they do is teamship for the entire year. Over the course of the year, they go through 5 teamship cycles. They start maybe 4 to 5 weeks long, and they get progressively longer as the year goes on. And one of the beautiful things about seeing one of the initial cohorts of students that went through this was how much their level of work improves from one cycle to the next. So I would say most of our students get 1 touch on the ball. Those that are getting 2, 3, 4, and 5, oh my gosh, it's through the roof. In terms of how they can accelerate their abilities in terms of this work. So I went to the kind of final pitch event on one of the last cycles for one of these original cohorts, and they had been solving a problem for a museum in Raleigh that had a bunch of exhibits up on the main museum floor, and down in the basement they had the exhibit workshop. So they had this team of people that had all the tools on the wall, and they had desks, and they built their exhibits down in this workshop, and then they would take them upstairs and display them. And the problem they were having that they brought to the student teams was that they were losing tools, things were misplaced, things were disorganized. And so they asked the students to design for them a system to like better keep track of, you know, the inventory of tools and supplies. So mind you, these students have now been through 4 or 5 of these teamship cycles. And so they're pretty advanced. So there are a couple of teams of students working on this problem. And so they decided to go to the actual site, visit the workshop, and talk with a bunch of the people down there. And part of the experience is really investigating the problem, not taking the business at their word, but really investigating the problem and talking with stakeholders and trying to understand what's really going on. So they come to the end and they pitch their solution to the representatives from the museum, and they start by saying, you told us what the problem was, that you lacked a strong like inventory management system, but we've uncovered what we think the real problem is, which is that there's a lack of trust among your teammates.
Wow.
And here's what we heard, and here's how we have designed our solution to address that core problem. So what they discovered was happening was, if I needed the drill 2 days from now to build my exhibit, I would grab it and put it in my desk drawer because I didn't trust that my other teammates would honor my reservation of that tool or whatever it was. So students uncovered all this and presented their solution based on that key insight. So that is one story, Peter, where I think the evolution of the students' work over time, their commitment to the process, and you see 16 and 17-year-olds doing this kind of work, and you think, oh my gosh, there is hope for our world. If you set a high bar, these students will achieve it. You all know this. You've worked with many of these students. So that's one example of many, but I appreciate the question and the opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. That's deep. That's some deep stuff for a high school student, man.
Yeah.
I know. And it shows like how investing I'm sure your partnership over the 7 years has grown. And then for them to have a course that is now a full year-long cycle, then they're really seeing like the benefits of, right, like you, as you said, one touch. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be better than no touches with work-based learning or teamship experiences, real world problem solving. But it's really, what I'm hearing is it's more important to get more of those. So for like schools that are considering this, do you typically work with like the business department? Is it like, do different states kind of prioritize, this differently? I'm just curious because it is a unique approach to bring it into the school day and be like, we're going to make it accessible for all students. And I'm sure like we learned from Kevin Fleming not that long ago, like Ohio has entrepreneurship standards and at every grade level. Well, I'm sure that drives what kind of courses and programs that districts want to partner with. So what has kind of been your experience with District C and the types of, educators and systems that maybe traditionally you work with, and then also where you also can work with that people might not think of?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think you're partially getting at what are like the systems level conditions that can support and promote this kind of work. And I would say that is the biggest challenge with growing our reach, is that the example I just gave is a charter school. So they had the flexibility to say, we're going to create this elective and we know we can enroll students in it. And we know we can staff it, right? They had more budget flexibility. We work with a few independent schools, a few charter schools. 98% of the work we do is with bigger or even smaller comprehensive school districts. Most of the time we are working through CTE departments and Perkins funding that is going towards training the teachers and supporting the ongoing program. The reason why, I guess, going back to kind of the primary obstacle, which is where does this fit? Like, where do you put it? The most success we've had is, you teach a business marketing course and you're looking for a really cool capstone at the end of the year. this 4 or 5 week experience can satisfy that in a really powerful way. And we'll find you a marketing agency or a company that has a marketing department that has a problem to solve, and we'll connect your students with that. And that tends to work great because the students are enrolled, the teacher is already scheduled and is already getting paid for that section. And so you don't have to recruit the students or find a new educator to kind of put in front of those students. For those that want to take it to the next level, they're having to make budget decisions around, okay, how do we pay for another section for this teacher? How do we enroll these students when there are 50 other electives and the teachers that teach those other electives are going to complain that now we've got another option that's pulling their students? So embedded into existing courses tends to be the best way to implement it for now. I would say ideally, personally, we would have a dedicated course for this in every school across the country and have it be required. But I think we've got a long ways to go to get there. And if you all have any ideas from your decades of experience in education, I would love to hear them. But this is like slow progress. I think we're making progress, but it's like steps.
Which, as kind of a design thinker, I'm going to guess you're kind of an EX or UX designer and a design thinker. It's torturous, isn't it? We want things now. We want things to move faster. We want to be, mindful of things. But we also kind of, the time is now, like how fast, education and knowledge is coming at us, especially with AI and all these different things that you mentioned before. I really love the lens. One of the things that we're doing in our district and actually in Illinois is, and this is for everybody listening, is we do have these, you can get endorsed in a CTE pathway, right? So you have to do a few things. You have to take an amount of classwork, and all this has to be okayed by our state board of ed. But you have to go through a few classes, but there is some career exploration, and kind of where we're like meeting here with District C is what we call they're called team-based challenges, right? Mm-hmm. So they're very similar to that. And what I like about that is exactly what you're saying. I mean, we're solving some equitable issues here. We're also, really, teamwork, right? Allie and I have talked about this so many times. I'm sure you've seen it. In high school, usually what happens is you get put into a team. Allie does all the work. We're riding coattails. We're like, yeah, all right, good job. Thanks for the A, Allie. But we know in life it doesn't work that way because, if Allie can do it and 3 other people can't, well, let's just have Allie do it and we're going to pay her, right? And then the rest of you, well, sorry, good luck. One of the things that we are challenged to do is actually bringing this across the curriculum, right? And so I heard you with the low hanging fruit, right? Of course, business and some of the CTE courses, it's very easy to say, yeah, I got a marketing class, I have an accounting class, here's, something that relates. Are you looking at, or have you done anything in, I don't like to call it this, but this is what a lot of educators call it, the core 4, right? Like English, math, science as a science educator, history. Sounds like that museum one you just said would be totally up in history as well. It could be connected. Have you seen any of that? Or are you guys planning on any of that?
I love this question. So I think you said it. These are not, so I would say these are industry sector agnostic skills. Mm-hmm. How to work with other people to do hard things. It doesn't matter the career that you go in, the job that you pursue. This is like the unifying skill set. If you can't do these things, you will not be employed in the modern economy. Like it's that plain and simple. And so whether it's a math class, a Latin class, an English class, a business marketing class, a computer science class, students need this experience. The short answer is, as I said earlier, most of the time this is happening through CTE, because if I have a conversation with a superintendent and I tell them what we do and what we offer, they will say, oh, this is career, so this should go into CTE, right? But I think we need to start breaking down those walls. And as we think about any teacher in their classroom, I would imagine they would be excited about this kind of opportunity. But the 2 questions they will have is, well, if I'm not kind of doing my traditional teaching, what is my role?
Mhm.
And how do I find the businesses and the business problems? And these are the two biggest pain points, right? Is we have exceptional educators out there, and we need to help them transition from kind of the traditional teaching approach to a facilitator coach approach. And that's where our training comes in. We also need to help them connect with the businesses that can supply these real world problems and show up and engage with students. And so those two elements, I think, are really key to making this go at scale. And that's what we're trying to do through District C and Teamship, is to provide those supports.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think about like in the science realm, the students who love science, in the districts that I taught in, it was common to have either students double up, obviously take AP or IB level courses, the honors courses, but then even some students would want, they just want to be around the science teachers. And you can apply this to the English, and there's always those students that just find they just love a certain subject area.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes juniors and seniors, at least in science at the districts that I've taught, and it's very common, they'd be like lab assistants or teachers assistants. And it's kind of like an internship in the classroom, but it's not as powerful as working in the science field or part. There's tons of at least in St. Louis, Missouri, where I used to teach, like there's tons of pharmacy and pharmaceutical companies that I'm sure have unique problems that, like you might not think about in the science realm. And, there are tons of scientists that they are literally solving problems all the time, where that model could fit. And I'm thinking like, okay, what if all of these high schools think about like junior and senior year in the core classes as having some type of capstone-esque experience that CTE and or other courses have that is lacking in the quote unquote core four. And it's like I can just see we've heard so much on the podcast through this series is people like yourself in District C doing this disruption. It's like you got to get in somewhere. Okay, so it fits in CTE, and that's how you get in and you make that one step. And now it's like, okay, you've paved the way for other teachers in the school district and for maybe more the traditional public school models to see like this could work in other classes and we can meet other requirements. Because that's what you're saying, is that these skills are universal. Like it doesn't matter what your passion is, like you got to be able to work with others. So I'm here for District C and the work you're doing, Dan. Like, yeah.
Yeah, no, so
question in there. It's just more like,
no,
yeah,
I mean you're Allie gave her final thought early, but that's cool. No, but I wanted to ask, as along with that, like what Allie's speaking about, and you have these students who are able to unpack this really, teamwork and conflict resolution. It all kind of unpacks in there. If I always say, if businesses out there are smart, and I'm going to go to the Gary Vee model. I always go back to Gary Vee. If you want to know what the next generation is doing, you got to take a look at the 13, 14-year-olds, right? If you have this ability to work with students and learn with the students as a business, right? Tell me about like the businesses. What are they saying when they come into this? Yeah, I mean, you're talking about an outside entity, and everybody has this stereotypical high school thing in their head. Every generation has it. But then these students come in. I mean, you have a museum that these kids went deep. I mean, understanding that the problem, that it was actually just there was a deeper problem. That's insanely awesome. And you could pay like a consultancy hundreds of thousands of dollars to figure that out when you had an opportunity here and you worked with these amazing students. So can you maybe unpack some of what are some of your companies saying? I know you have a few on your website that are unpacking some things, but like, yeah, what have you seen with businesses who choose to go this amazing route?
This is a really fun part of the work. We have at this point engaged almost 600 businesses. And these are businesses in our network that have opted into this experience. From Sully's Golf and Gather in Johnston County, North Carolina, all the way to Dell, IBM, Snapchat, Skillsoft. What's really fun is that all businesses have problems. All businesses need perspective on those problems, and all kinds of businesses are willing to engage. What's really interesting is, and we've learned a ton from just like trying stuff and not succeeding and then trying it in a different way
Yeah.
in terms of business partner recruitment. What we find is when they say yes the first time, they're saying yes because they want to contribute to their community and they want to be doing good for the students in their community. When they decide to come back, it's because they realize, oh, wow, I'm actually getting real value from this. I didn't expect that I would from high school students, but if you set a high bar, they will exceed that bar. And I'm getting to learn about and potentially recruit my future talent, right? A lot of these experiences through Teamship turn into follow-on internship or job opportunities. Sully's Golf and Gather is a great example. They ended up hiring on the teams that they did Teamship with for a summer internship to continue working on the problem and the solution that those teams had proposed. And then they hired one person full-time who's now running their social media. And so this is a great way, even in those school districts that, might be thinking, oh, I've got all these businesses in our business alliance. How do I engage them? It's like you get this far and you want to like connect it, but there's no great way to do it. Teamship is a great first step in. It's a 5-hour commitment for the business. And it often leads to deeper engagements down the line. And so if businesses are coming in thinking they're just kind of, doing it for goodwill, they end up realizing, wow, there's so many other ancillary benefits to this work.
Yeah. Love that.
Like they can uncover one problem and they get a perspective like, oh, now I have 3 more problems.
Yeah, totally.
I definitely think your engineering background, like in the mindset that you have, is like really works for like a school partnership. And when we're learning more through the podcast and organizations like District C, that we really do need more of these symbiotic relationships, these partnerships where like the community sees the benefit of the school and the school sees the benefit of the community, and really like how much that can grow. So you like this school district, you said for 7 years that you've been working with them. Have they seen or shared with you like, yeah, before working with District C, we felt like this disconnect, and now we feel, or like, what kind of transformations, even or school districts working 1, 2, 3 years with you, like what are types of community transformations are you seeing with this type of work?
Yeah, really good question. I mean, we recognize that school districts and schools spend a lot of time building their business alliances and business networks, and a lot of times those relationships are there. And district leaders are trying to engage those businesses at a deeper level, right? And so I don't know that we are, and I would never take credit for District C in the sense that we would be creating these relationships out of whole cloth. Oftentimes they are there and we're facilitating a stronger connection. Often we're bringing in businesses and introducing them to the school district for the first time. But I think we're providing we're providing that thing that allows the district and the business community to snap together easily, right? And I think taking as much friction out of it as possible is key. So Peter, that like you're engaging businesses every day, and I bet you hear a lot of, for legal reasons, we can't really have high school students on our campus. And by the way, can a 15-year-old really add any value to my organization? And I'm going to have to assign a busy manager to support these students. I'd rather can I just show up for a lunch and learn and talk about my job? And then, and it kind of ends there. So Teamship is a way for them to engage on a really light level, 5 hours over the course of 4 or 5 weeks. The coach, who's the teacher, is doing all the mentoring and supporting the students. We're providing all of the logistical support and helping the business scope the problem. So all they have to do is show up 3 times for 3 meetings with the students. And they come that first time and like, oh my gosh, these students are prepared to ask some really powerful questions, and their perspective changes. Now, all of a sudden, they're seeing those students as their future talent, and they're wanting more perspective from those students. And so I think that's where we're finding, I think this is a way to like click those elements together and get deeper conversations going. So it's strengthening more than maybe creating out of whole cloth.
Sure.
Yeah.
Spot on. That's exactly, I mean, the stickiness of it is something that eludes a lot of educators. Like you're saying, like, there is that, I mean, you're exactly right. You went exactly right down the level. Yeah, you get a partner, and they don't realize how they can really harness the power of their own community, and vice versa. Even educators don't realize, once you get out of the way of working with students and kind of, well, I always call it just getting out of their way. Right? Like you just get out of their way and let them play, and then facilitate that rather than telling them step by step what to do.
Yeah.
I love that. That is amazing. So before we get into Allie's final thought, what's next for District C? What are you coming up in 2025? What is something that you're excited about?
Yeah, we have a fantastic partnership down here in North Carolina with an organization called Spark NC. They essentially provide opportunities for students across North Carolina to experience topics in high tech as a way to expose them and help to generate interest and galvanize interest in these students. It's a really fascinating model. I won't get into all of the innovations within the model, but we are one of Spark NC's core program providers. So we provide kind of one of the core work-based learning components of this model. We're at this point, we have kind of piloted and are now scaling a really interesting way to get teamship in front of more students. And it is what we call statewide teamship. And any student across 17 school districts in the state can enroll on a rolling basis into these virtual teamship experiences. So you might have 4 students on a team from 4 different regions of the state, all working on a problem for a business that might be 300 miles away, all through the power of Zoom and modern professional collaboration tools that you and I are using right now and that all professionals use, right? And so the exciting thing about this is that through the partnership with Spark, we've been able to introduce a new mode to get students engaged in teamship. Previously, you had to get a teacher trained in your local region or your local district or your school, and then we would support that teacher in doing teamship locally. That is the critical model. That's how we're going to scale this to the levels that we want to scale it. But having this virtual model that brings different parts of the state together opens it up to more students who might not have access. And I think the potential there for us to get to all 115 school districts, we're on our way. We just, we've got plans for it. And I think we're going to get there. So that's, I think, the thing that is front of mind for us is pushing that forward and scaling that for as many students as possible.
Oh, love that. Love that. Allie,
Full
final
circle.
thoughts. Shoot them out.
I really think, Dan, you're downplaying the importance of this work and that the ability to make those connections. Because if you can start with the students and the businesses, and you're really providing that, it's a critical missing piece. And it's a reason why many school districts don't have the internships and work-based learning experiences, because it comes down to the educators, and they're like, I don't have the time capacity to put this together. So, right, like, an organization like District C can be so disruptive, and you might not be taking data on it, but I just know based off of what you're offering that those connections are going to have ripple effects in the communities that you're doing it. And it's like, maybe you can't like put a metric on it, but this is the type of work that we really think is going to change education in the right way. And I love this idea that like you're taking it to a level where look, anybody anywhere can join this in, you're starting with North Carolina, but hopefully it, expands beyond that, just that we are in this digital age and using the tools that we have to like make even more connections and solve these problems for students who need these skills beyond, solving algebra problems for 3 hours of homework every night.
Yeah.
Like they can be doing other things. So I'm so glad to have you on the podcast and feature District C as an organization deep in the work of disrupting education. Like I said, I think you're downplaying it.
He's humble.
But it's great work. It's great work.
Thank you for that. I so appreciate it. Appreciate your support.
So we got listeners out here, and this series is all about, hey man, taking action. Who can we connect with? Who can we find out who's doing the work? You're obviously doing the work. I just love I can hear like the design thinking and the actual learning journey of District C, which is wonderful because I love to actually, especially in the classroom, I love to show like how to learn, and kids need to understand, this is a way to learn and to try things, and we failed and we've learned opportunities. How can people connect with District C and you, Dan?
Yeah, pretty simple. districtc.co. There's no M at the end.
Yeah.
districtc.co, and there's a contact form there. And that'll go to directly to one of my teammates, and we generally reach out within 24 hours. And that's the easiest way to engage. Our primary work, most of our work is in North Carolina, but we're now in 8 or 9 other states across the country and developing some traction in other states, including Wisconsin. I'm really glad that Scott reached out and made this connection. Some really exciting stuff happening in the Milwaukee region and other parts of the state. So we will work anywhere because your students, regardless of where you are, I think really deserve this experience. And we would love to help anyone kind of achieve this kind of thing. So look us up. Looking forward to chatting.
districtc.co. It's just like disrupteducation.co. See, we're the co's. That's who we are. I love it.
So you all have the same issue. You probably have a pile of emails.
Oh, somebody's sitting on this thing somewhere,
Yeah.
The cyber squatters. We'll work around them though. I can't thank you enough, Dan, for number one, obviously co-founding this with your wife is amazing. I know this is a game changer of education. I think Allie and I in this entire series have been talking a lot about, what are different ways that we can really put meaning to learning. This goes all the way back into Mark Perna's, like these students finding their why. This really connects with the next 2 generations of learners. This makes school meaningful. It makes education meaningful. So thank you for doing all that you do. Again, if you want to check them out, it's districtc.co. And this really, I love the fact that we're coming up on the end of our series. We do have one more guest coming up, but Dan, you really encapsulated, really putting problems and solutions into play in education rather than just sitting out here and just saying, oh, education is da 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 da. You've really kind of dug deep, understood that how to get people to become productive and also problem solve and challenge some equitable issues we have in education. So thank you so much for sharing your story today on Disrupt Education.
Thank you both. Keep doing what you're doing. So appreciate it.
Absolutely. So for Allie Privet, I'm Peter Hostrasser. Thank you all for listening to the podcast. Please make sure you subscribe, share it out. We've got some great things coming up. Can't wait to talk to you next time on the Disrupt Education Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Disrupt Education Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Are you ready to disrupt the educational arena you're a part of? For more ways to get involved in the work we do here at Disrupt Education, check us out at disrupteducation.co or find us on LinkedIn at Peter Hostrasser or Allie Privet.
Our mission here is to help facilitate and amplify changes in the educational system through local initiatives and help you scale them into community movements. Our building network of disruptors in education are working to move beyond scores and grades as the only measure for student learning. If your school district, college, campus, or organization is looking for facilitators of this work, reach out on our website or social media.
And if you have any thoughts or feedback on this week's episode or any episode, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, taking risks, and most importantly, disrupting education.